Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock. My wife made me promise not to do my watch routine through, I won't do it. All right. My name is Sheldon Smith. I'm your educational director. This is a cell phone that's off. So if you could make yours mimic that one, it would be a good idea to shut your cell phones off. This is number 4, and I think this is just really going to be a very cool seminar. Richard Greeno has worked diligently to get this thing together, and I think we're really going to have a good time. He's going to have a little quiz for you at the end. I think I've given it away to 1 or 2 people, but that's about all. I also like you to, if you haven't been to any of the other seminars, we have a clue program going on. Some people have called it the Clueless program, but it's Come, Listen, Educate, Win, and Chris has been handing out little coupons. And originally I was practicing to be Attila the Hun, and I was going to make sure that everybody came in before a certain time, didn't leave the room, and that we were going to hole punch the coupons on the way out to make sure that you were doing what you're supposed to be doing. And then we realized everybody was coming in literally Johnny on the spot and staying to the bitter end of the thing when I was walking out of the room. So if you just take the coupon, print your name in it, sign it, and at some point today or tomorrow, before 11 a.m. tomorrow, I would direct you to a little rolling tumbler basket that's in the showroom at the membership desk, but the membership desk has sequestered my tumbler to use for another raffle. So when you get there, don't be surprised when you go and the person says, no, you can't stick it in there. They have a little plastic bag, and tomorrow morning, shortly before 11 o'clock, we'll transfer all the things into the tumbler and we'll take a tumble. Fourth prize will be a $1 uncirculated South Point. Third prize will be a $5 uncirculated South Point. Second prize will be a $25 uncirculated South Point. And first prize will be a $100 uncirculated South Point. And I have them in my hand. And of course, the minute you go downstairs after you win the $100, you're welcome to go to the cashier and cash out your $100 chip. We're going to do this in a fairly formal setting because our experience has been that we'd rather you not ask questions until your seminar presenter, or as I refer to them, our seminarians, are done with their presentation. Questions from the audience in the middle tend to derail the seminar presenter, and occasionally we get into arguments about this and that and the other, and suddenly you look at the clock and realize that the seminar presenter's only gotten halfway through and we only have 10 minutes left. And I'm fairly strict about it. Actually this morning, the presenter stopped someone from asking a question and said, wait till the end. I was pretty impressed because I hadn't even had a chance to stop the person from asking the question. Today we're doing Collectibles of Las Vegas, but it's really entitled The First 13 Casinos on the Strip. Mr. Richard Greeno has worked very difficult, very long hours, took you 10 minutes, right, to put this together. And I'm very pleased to have him as the 4th and final seminar of our educational series for 2009. Richard?
Sheldon, thank you very, very much, especially for taking up 6 minutes of my time. But wow, what a great looking group we have here this afternoon. For being smart enough to be here, give yourselves a great big round of applause. As we were flying out here Tuesday, I was thinking about Las Vegas and some of the stories of Las Vegas, and I have one I'd like to share with you for a few moments. There was this elderly mafia don that was on his deathbed, and he requested that his grandson come and to his bedside. And when the grandson got there, the grandfather says, I'm not long for this world, and he says, I would like for you to have my pearl-handled .45. Well, the grandson looked at his grandfather for a few moments, and he says, Granddad, he says, you know I don't like guns. He says, can I have your Rolex watch? The wise old Don, he motioned for the grandson to come a little bit closer, and he said, one of these days, very soon, all of this is going to be yours. And then he says, you're going to be very, very rich, and you're going to have a lot of cars, and you're going to have a lot of big houses. And then he says you're going to get married, and then you're going to have some little bambinos. And then he says one night, he says you're going to come home, And he says, you're going to find your wife in bed with another man. Then he says, what are you going to do? You're going to look at your watch and say, time's up? Thank you. Today I would like to talk about the collectibles of Las Vegas. The first time I came to Vegas was in 1967, 42 years ago. And it was sort of spotty in between 67 and 75, and ever since 75 we've been coming every year. Magic was part of the thing that got me into the collectibles of Las Vegas, and I will mention that briefly as we go through. And the collectibles of Las Vegas can be almost anything that the casinos put out. And most people, they think chips or tokens or matchbooks or so forth. But there is actually thousands of items that are collectible. Most of the pictures you're going to see today is out of our private museum that we have back in Frankfort, Indiana. And I would like to share some of these pictures with you. We're going to talk about the first 13 casinos, which I call the Baker's Dozen. And we're going to start them in order. And the very first one was the El Rancho Vegas. It opened April the 3rd, 1941 to June the 17th, 1960. And there is a nice picture of the El Rancho. Now, if you notice where the dot is, that is the main area that burned in 1960. And this area here is basically all the area that was taken out by fire. But all this area back through here, all the bungalows, and I want you to notice these two buildings right here and this one particular building right there. These was not taken out by fire, and that is the reason why there are probably so many collectibles left. The two buildings to the back right there were warehouses and shops, and that is probably the reason that there is so much out there from the El Rancho Vegas, although there are some very rare things left from the El Rancho. And this bungalow right there was Joe E. Lewis. And Joe E. Lewis was an entertainer that spent a big portion of his life there. And there's a lot of stories you could tell about him. The ERV set the bar very high for advertising. They put their name on everything. Now, why did the ERV come and pick that particular lot to build on? There's two reasons. Number one, location, location. Number two, Las Vegas city limits, Sahara. Sahara Avenue is the Las Vegas city limits. You cross that and you're into Clark County. Clark County allowed slot machines. Downtown only allowed gaming. So they had everything when they came across into the county. Now, there were other places out here on the strip, but they were not full-fledged casinos. But as I said, they set the bar very high for advertising. They put their name on everything. Shoe shine claws, pins, and that pin right there, they give that out by the tens of thousands. And I have an invoice that shows the price. They paid 22.5 cents back in the late 50s for them pins, buying them at $25,000 at a time. 22.5 cents. I want you to see this pin here. I bought this a year ago from my store, and I paid 22 cents for it. That was a high price back then. And they put them pins out by the tens of thousands, and I have only seen maybe a couple, 3 dozen of them in the last 10, 15 years. So for as many as they put out, there's not too many of them left. That there is a nice piece. That's 2 pieces of plexiglass, the placard in the back with the 5 cents up there. That is 2 pieces of plexiglass. It's hand painted in the center, and then it's sandwiched together. The painting is not on the outside, and this was mounted on the back of the slot machines. Of course, you couldn't be without these little noise makers that they passed out for every show, and many of the casinos had them. And you couldn't have a cup of coffee or a bowl of soup or anything without seeing the El Rancho's name. And you also notice up here is a wooden menu. It's got 2 different breakfast menus on it, one on each side. And the Yucca Club on the other side of town is the only other club that I am aware of that put out a wooden menu. Now there may be more, but I just have not heard of them or seen them. There's more of the chinaware and silverware. Right here is 4 different patterns by 3 different silverware makers. And Oneida furnished most of the silverware for them. And this here is a very rare piece. I've never seen another one. It's got the El Rancho Vegas logo on the bottom. And that is made by Oneida. Some people say don't clean it. Some people say do. I do one of each. This here, you got all the safe X's. The little tri-lobe, right? Whoops, I went the wrong way. There we are. The little tri-lobe right here, that is not from the El Rancho Vegas here in Las Vegas. That was one of Thomas Hall's El Rancho motels. And if you notice, it's got the windmill right on top, built identically. He had, I believe, 7 motels throughout the western states that he owned, besides the one here in Las Vegas. The Moscow Mule cups them are heavy copper. The later ones are a lighter copper. That has got an applied handle, not a riveted handle. And that has also got engraving instead of a paper label. Sort of hard object to come by. This here, that is sort of a rare thing. It's a roulette ashtray. It was sold in the gift shop. And I've only seen 2 of them. One we own, and that has got the gift box. I've seen 2 others without the gift box. And so that makes 4 of them I've actually seen in about 15 years. This here is a dime a dozen. But what is not a dime a dozen is this. You very seldom find the gift box with it. And that is sort of a hard item to come by because they all came in boxes and they was given out. Now maybe in later years they give a lot of them to the filling station without the boxes, but they started out giving them out in gift boxes. The Mary Kay Trio, they set the bar high too. They done the first LP on the Strip, and Joey Lewis done an LP there also. Then you have checks from the El Rancho. Them is to the Dottie Lee Dancers, Johnny White, and the June Taylor Dancers. And here's different envelopes with different logos and what have you on them. And back there is a wooden placard right there. And that's all hand painted. And you can still see right here where it was mounted onto the back of the machine. This here is a very interesting piece right here. This piece is out of the fire. And I met the gentleman, Dave Ortez, was from Las Vegas. He was a construction worker. And I got that piece from him as well as the silverware down here. He was hired to tear down the actual El Rancho Vegas, and then 10 years later, after they decided to tear down the rest of the El Rancho Motel, because the El Rancho Motel served for another 10 years. He came back and tore it down, but he knew where they had dumped all this stuff. In his later years, he took a metal detector and dug this up. And then these are chips that are out of the safe that went through the fire, and you can see how they're melted. This here was across the street, and you can see the picture right there. This was land that was owned by the ERV. And a gentleman I met out here in Vegas, he had all this. He had worked there, and when they closed the place down and tore it down, he was able to come up with that, and I was able to buy all the different items from that. This piece here, the construction worker that I talked about, right after the fire, this scale was found in Joey Lewis's room, and it is a cast iron scale. One heavy dude. I've never seen another one like it. But I understood that Joey Lewis was sort of worried about his weight, and he liked to weigh himself every day. So he was a little bit of a help in that. And then that up there is a dealer's tie. Number 2, The Last Frontier, October the 30th, 1942 to July the 16th, 2007. I'm sure they're sorry that they tore that down. But anyhow, there's a nice picture of the Frontier. And several of the safe X's, napkins, and stirs. Siegfried and Roy was there. $29.95, and you got 2 drinks. You can't do that today. There's another noisemaker. More ashtrays. The glassware up there. That's when they actually give you glassware when you would go buy a drink and you could keep the glassware and take it home with you. Today they give you plasticware that they call glassware. Here's some early brochures. And of course Wayne Newton's got his face on one of the music hall menus. And this is a nice telephone directory book, and it has got a light copper metal attached to it, and several of the casinos out here had these in their rooms for quite a few years, and they're sort of a hard and rare item to come by. Number 3, Bugsy's Fabulous Flamingo. December the 26th, 1946 till present. You can't do that today, set out by the strip. There's no grass nowhere today. This here has got, there's one of the ceramic things that you would buy and get a drink in. But this item right here, I don't know how many of you remember going to motels years ago, and they would put one of these on a glass, and they would say it was sanitized. It wasn't factory sealed, it was just stuffed into the glass. You didn't know whether the glass had been washed or not. And then Buddy Greco, he had to do an LP also, and right up here is 2 ashtrays I want to talk about. These are gift shop trays now, and one is the Flamingo Hilton and one is the Flamingo. And if you're collecting ashtrays, the Flamingo Hilton is the rarest of them 2 ashtrays, and because after it became the Flamingo again, then they put this one back out. And then they put another one out that has taken the place with a different logo on it that's sort of glittery like this is here. And then here's one of your little plastic glasses you get with your drink nowadays. More, I want to touch base on this right here. You see this real shiny spoon? I have no idea how I got that. Except I think my wife put it in her purse when we was having dinner there in 1975. Tom Jones, he had to do his thing at the Flamingo. And this here, if you ever went to any of the shows, they'd come up with their little camera and want to take their pictures. And of course, if you bought one, they would put it in a holder like this. And this one here shows a Bugsy suite up there, and this was actually Bugsy's suite right there. And then there's a night picture of the Flamingo. Number 4 is the Thunderbird, September the 2nd, 1948 to December the 31st, 1976. And a nice colored older picture of it. The Thunderbird, I believe, had more ashtrays than any other casino going. We have approximately 48 ashtrays in our collection, and we are aware of 52 Thunderbird ashtrays out there. And I'm sure there are more than that. I'm positive, because every time I think I'm done, I find another one. But right here, I want to show you this. These here are 3 different makes of ashtrays that was put out at different times, and the difference is the bird. You see how that bird's setting, and this one and this one? Each time they would reorder, that bird got repositioned just a little bit different. And so you've got 3 different types of ashtrays. Keno sheets, more menus. Number 5, the Desert Inn, April the 24th, 1950 to August 28th, 2000. There's a nice older picture. This here is got 2 different logos for this. There's 2 different size pictures, and this is the logo that is used on this dinnerware also. This is a little bit harder to find if you're collecting dinnerware and glasses, but they use 2 different dinnerwares. This here I like because the bobby pins on the comb that they give away, don't find bobby pins no more today. And you used to use them for a little bit of everything. Stirs, and he used to like to have his picture on about everything, including ashtrays. This is a piece that I want you to take notice of right here. I bought this as an ice tray. It's not an ice tray. And about a year or so later after I bought that piece there, I came across a bunch of pictures, and as I was looking at them, look what I found. At each place setting is one of these. Now, is it an ice tray? Is it a bone dish? It seems awful small for a bone dish. I don't know what it is, but pictures are nice to try to identify different things back in. Maybe somebody, when we take question and answers, somebody will have an answer to that. Right here is a picture of Jay Marshall. I told you that magic sort of had a connection with Las Vegas. And Jay Marshall was the gentleman that played at the Desert Inns. And that is a menu right there that I had him autograph. That was his last time that he emceed up there at Cohen, Michigan. And Jay was a good friend of mine. And he made his fortune with that little fella right there. And it got him a standing ovation every time. And he sang, "If I Had My Way." And he was on the Ed Sullivan Show 11 different times. And this was his last appearance and MC job at Cohen, Michigan. And a lot of the magicians that are out here on the strip today, including Lance Burton, Max King, and so forth, came through Cohen, Michigan. And this right here, what is important about this, not only was he the second act, Frank Sinatra, almost forgot that gentleman. Frank Sinatra was the headliner, and Jay was the second headliner to him, and I got a lot of stories that Jay told me about Frank. Number 6 is the Sahara, October the 7th, 1952, to the present. Nice colored picture of it. A Sahara decanter for an invitational, and then here is one of the drink decanters that you could buy, many different glasses and ice trays. Many different matchbooks. And of course, Sonny and Cher had to do an album at the Sahara also. And 2 different colored dealer ties. Stirs, ice trays. And number 7, the Sands, December the 15th, 1952 to June the 30th, 1996. And there's Melinda, the first lady of magic out here. And I could talk an hour about Melinda. But there's several different items of the Sands. One of the great things that we would do when we come to the Sands would be to collect the coffee cups. We always would have to go down and see what new coffee cup they had. And when they first started, you'll notice this, they ended up at the end handing these out on the street and at the doorway. But to start with, they were given out at the motels, and the motel would put their stamp on them so the Sands would know that they was handing them out for them. And different pens, more coffee cups, another noise maker. And then Tommy Sands, he had to do an album at the Sands called The Sands at the Sands. And number 8, the Royal Nevada, April the 20th, 1955, January the 8th, 1959. Very collectible casino. It was later made into the Stardust. This right here, I have in 3 different colors. And there may be more, but I'm aware of 3 at the moment. They also have their own picture holder, which almost every casino did. This item here I sort of like because this has got a metal fingernail file, and I've never seen another one out there like this with their logo on it. Number 9 was the Riviera, April the 20th, 1955 to the present. I remember the Riviera like that. I stayed there when it was still like that and had the parking, valet parking was right in here. And they have many cups too. And we always went down to see what new cup they would have. Up until the last couple of years, they used to have a cup about every 6 months. Many different ashtrays. Engelbert, he had to get his LP in also. This right here, holds a bar of soap. This was in your room, and it was a neat little soap holder. When the convention was there for their 50th, when we was down there during the 50th anniversary of the Riviera, I was introduced to the promotion manager, and he was told that I had a small museum back in Frankfurt, and he presented us with all these items here, and we displayed them in our museum. More items from the Riviera. I think these items right here sort of got into my suitcase by some chance. Number 10, the Dunes, May the 23rd, 1955 to October the 20th, 1993. Beautiful picture of the dunes. Al Morgan, he had his LP also. Here's an item I'd like to talk about. They call this a coin cup. I disagree. I think it's a coffee cup. I think some people used it for a coin cup, maybe pennies or nickels or dimes, but to be an actual coin cup, I don't believe so, but I could be wrong. More collectibles, security patches, so forth. And number 11, the Hacienda, October the 12th, 1956 to December the 1st, 1996. The Hacienda Horseman. And if you go downtown, you will see the Hacienda Horseman standing there in all its pride and glory. They have restored it, very beautiful at night. And there is the Hacienda Horseman and a miniature decanter. Quite a few of the casinos had miniature decanters put out. And number 12, the Tropicana, April the 4th, 1957 to present. My son our youngest son is not into our collectibles very much, and he's not into our antiques either. But when we got this, he said, cool. And I think if there's anything in our collection he would like to have, it would be that. A lot of this, we stayed at the Tropicana for many years, and probably a lot of this got into my suitcase also. So, different stirs, a 6-inch ruler, luggage tags, you name it, we've collected it. Coffee cup. Now that's what I call a coin cup right there. This is what I call a coin cup. I have a problem with the others, but many different ashtrays from the Tropicana and many different variations. And number 13, the Stardust, July the 2nd, 1958 to November the 1st, 2006. And somebody mentioned yesterday that he's probably very sorry that he tore that down with the economy the way it is, because that was still a going casino when they tore it down. Nice older picture of it. A miniature decanter. Again, another one of them coffee cups or coin cups. An item right here that if you went to the convention at the Riviera, you was given a coupon, and if you took it over to the Stardust cage, this is what you got. And it's a paperweight with a $1,000 token. It's a replica of, and that is the presentation box that they give it to you in. And so that's what you get when you come to these conventions. You get some nice gifts. Little pin trays. And then, of course, Tony Spilotro and Oscar Goodman. And the story of Casino, and these is the mob days, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. That is the first 13 casinos, which I call the Baker's Dozen. Now, we're going into more casino collectibles. Binion's Horseshoe. You couldn't talk about collectibles or casinos without talking about Binion's. August 1951 to present. Had many, many different things happen to it through the years, and they've been up and down, and the murder of Ted and so forth. It's been quite a thing. There's a night shot of Binion's. An older menu, an ashtray. Over here you've got Joey Brown. He put out this game, and Joey Brown took over the casino while Benny was in jail for about 3 years. And then it took Benny about 3 years to get control back of it after he got out of jail. a box of the older Binion matches, a horseshoe decanter. I believe we have every ashtray that there is of Binions. We also have every calendar ashtray, and we're trying to get all the ashtrays. When we find the calendar ashtray that's got the original gift box with it, we collect it also. So we get rid of the older the other tray and take the one that's got the box. Many different matchbooks, stirs. Of course, the Binion black tie, that was very well known. And then after Binion's was bought by Harrah's and the horseshoe name was taken, and Binion's was sold off. This is when they reopened. This is the new logo, and this was some of the gift shop items that was there, and I was lucky enough to buy this just a few weeks after the new Binion's opened, and I'm glad I did. That is all the 5 colors that they had, and they disappeared. There's no more. I bought every ashtray that they have put out in the gift shop, coffee cups and what have you, even yo-yos. And you couldn't talk about Binion's without talking about the World Series of Poker, the different chips. And there's a 2 of spades signed by Benny's son, Jack. And there is Mawson with Jack. The Lady Luck, January the 1st, 1964 through February the 12th of 2006. A nice old picture. I don't know if any of you might remember the downtown parking when you could park in the center of the street, and when they had parking meters downtown also on Fremont Street. There are some of the first, when they started converting the slot machines over. This is what they put onto the slot machines. Take your slot card, and there's the little thing there that you push to get a girl to bring you change or so forth. Many hats, fun books, cups. We stayed there for about 20 years, and I thought this was one of the neatest items that they ever put out in Las Vegas. I really thought Lady Luck done that and went up nice. The Golden Nugget, August the 31st, 1946 to present. And I'm getting a little short on time, so I'm going to clip through a few pictures here. This here I want to take a second and look at. If you notice the hockey pucks, you will notice that you've got the cheap carnival glass that was put out in the late 50s. Then right here you've got a white carnival glass, and then this one here is a depression glass. And I'm going to show you this picture right here. If you notice right there, that is a cheap carnival glass put out by the Golden Nugget, but the motel took and put their logo on the bottom of them. They had them screen printed on the bottom. So you have got 2 people advertising on the same ashtray. Many other ashtrays that they put out. Miscellaneous collectibles. Of course, we like the Chinaware. And there's your coin cups. And DVDs, CDs, VCRs, you name it, we have it, that was recorded in Las Vegas. And roulette, we enjoy roulette. We have a roulette item for every letter in the alphabet. There is not a letter in the alphabet that we don't have an item that matches that letter. And right here is an item that I find very strange. See that little turtle right there? That's a tin toy. And you take and you wind it up and let it fly down the floor, and the roulette wheel turns around. Now, why would you build a toy like that for a kid? Beyond me. Couldn't talk about Vegas without talking about the Speedway, and there's Mr. Biffle's tire that he used out there and a picture of his car, and that is his jacket up there also. And boxing, you have to talk about boxing if you talk about Las Vegas. And my wife is a boxing fan, so of course these are bills that we got when we went to these particular shows. And the Plaza, that was a great show there, because the main fight, still the crowd hadn't come in and they was fashionably late. The guy was already knocked out. The mob. How could you talk about the mob and talk about Vegas without talking about the mob? These are tools of torture. These are weapons that was used or similar to the ones used by the mob to torture, maim, or kill. And Sam DeSfonto was Tony Spilatro's mentor. And Tony, in later life, was ordered by the mob to do a hit on Sam because Sam had got out of control and was doing killings that he wasn't supposed to do. I have two items here I want to talk about real quick, and one is this pistol. You notice it has no hammer on it. This pistol there has a hammer. If you would take, and that's a hit gun, and if you would take and put it into your side pocket, and it had a hammer on it, you wouldn't be able to pull it out. But if it had no hammer, you could pull it out real quick, and it wouldn't hang up into your pocket. And that is the reason why that was filed off. Now, when the police went through Mad Sam's house in Chicago, they found his murders were all by knives. And he never used any other weapon but butcher knives. This was found in his house. Now, it's got 3 notches on the handle right here. Now, I don't know if he killed 3 deer with it or 3 people. I have no idea. I'll let you come to that conclusion. More guns. There's a book on Ted Binion. And, of course, Tony Spilatro and his grave in Gary, Indiana. And for many years it was thought that a ball bat, that they had taken Tony and his brother Michael and beat him and then buried him alive in Indiana. But about 3 years ago at the trial in Chicago, they found out that they were actually killed in Chicago and then taken to Gary and buried over in Gary. More weapons. Right there is a picture of Ice Pick Willie, and that is at the Flamingo. More items. And then this right here, that arrow is showing where the .30-06 was held that shot Bugsy. And this is a copy of his death certificate, toe tag. There's a picture of his actual foot with a toe tag on it. And there's a picture of his casket. And as popular as Bugsy was, he only had 6 people come to the funeral. 6 people. Here's a picture that was in Life magazine. This was right after he was shot. This was before they moved the body. There was 2 different shots of this. And why they would publish a picture as gory as that was in Life magazine, I don't know, but they did. And there's another picture of... This here is Joseph Bonanno, Mafia Godfather. Part of the Godfather story was written on his life story. And this billfold right here is, I purchased it, and it is some of the finest leather I have ever touched. When I got the billfold, I figured that there would be nothing in it, and I found 2 pieces of paper. The picture, we didn't get the picture taken of the other piece, but there is 2 different names on this piece of paper with addresses, and I just clicked off, with addresses and phone numbers and so forth. I've never looked them up or tried to call them. And now, before I take question, Richard has 3 questions. The Desert Inn, we had the International Gold Cup at the Gold Cup tournament at the Desert Inn for several years. I know a lot about it, but a lot of history is lacking, and if anybody has any information on it, I am very interested. I'm also interested on the Tower of Pizza. I know where it was located, and I know a lot about the owners and so forth, but there's still a lot of information lacking. And this here is the Las Vegas Entertainment Award. This was in 1973 for the Bear Touch of Vegas review, and it was presented to Frederick Apcar, which was the producer, and Ron Lewis, which was the choreographer. And Sammy Davis Jr. and Mitzi Gaynor were the presenters for that. We own this particular award. I don't know how we ended up with it. I can't believe that somebody would sell it, but they did. And if anybody has any information on the Las Vegas Entertainment Awards, I'm very interested because I follow it for a few years and then it just sort of disappears. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the collectibles of Las Vegas. No, it's a private museum, sir. By invitation, yes. Be great.
20 miles away, for God's sake.
During your collecting all this stuff, do you happen to come across any of these casinos that copyrighted their logos or trademarked their logos or names?
I'm sure they did. I haven't got in depth into that, but I'm sure. Now, what is strange, the Sands didn't do that. And somebody else picked the Sands logo up and copyrighted it.
Well, I'm just curious, because a lot of the names you see on the different logos, you never see a registered copyright mark or anything.
You won't. You won't. They didn't have to. As long as they had, they filed and had the paperwork, they didn't have to do that. Yeah, some of it was, and you seen in little fine print, you seen copyrighted. Yes.
I think it's my help. The trademark item doesn't actually have to require a paperwork file. If the company uses it in a manner under the law, it's still protected trademark whether they do it or not.
Anybody else? More of a kind of a statement or an idea. I think that bowl that you couldn't identify that you thought might have been an ashtray, I think it might be a finger bowl.
I've been told that, but it's just a little too big for that. It's too small for a bone dish, but too big for a finger bowl. I'm not sure. I'm confused. Maybe somebody will be able to pinpoint it.
Can you give me the history of the Sands? I saw on the bug it had MGM Sands. They own the Sands?
Yes, at one time. Yes, and I can't tell you the exact years. I have that information at home. I don't have it up here, but yes, they did own it.
So, but the Sands, MGM,
Right,
that too.
right. It's just like that. I talked about the Flamingo a while ago, Flamingo Hilton, and they owned the Flamingo for a period of time, and then it went back to the Flamingo again by another owner.
The title of the thing was the first 13 casinos on the strip. Then you had Apnea for a while, but then you went downtown. So that's your...
I done the first 13 casinos, and then other collectibles from other casinos. Right, we done the full 13.
We have, Richard, I have a question for everybody, because you gave an answer to this one. Three parts. What was the 14th casino built on the strip? Where was it located? And what year? Okay. Where is it? I looked it up. You looked it up. Go ahead, is anybody else? I'll let somebody do it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's the Sands Sushi Hotel Casino, 1960. It's where the Mirage was.
Okay, you're partially right. You're partially right, sir. Actually, okay, this is a highly debatable answer, and I'm not going to get into debating it, but I'm just going to give you the answer. The San Souci was correct, and the San Souci was there in 55 to 62, but it was not actually the 14th casino. The 14th casino was actually the Castaways in 1963, sir, and it was there till 1987, and it was on the Mirage, exactly where the volcano is.
Okay, anybody else? Going once, yes, sir.
Given that you collect a lot of these different excluding chips and tokens, is there a ourselves 10 years from now when they don't exist anymore?
Grab everything there is. Because you'll be kicking yourself 10 or 20 years from now because you didn't pick it up. I have done that very thing. I said, no, I don't want this piece of junk, and I got too much stuff to take with me, and I would not take something, and today I wished I'd picked it up and brought it with me.
Before anybody departs, we ask any other questions, everyone has to make an announcement. The Splash Bar Park has been relocated to the bowling alley lounge at 5 p.m. That's all I know. We made the announcement this other show. So bowling alley lounge is now in the bowling alley. 5 p.m. Splash Bar. Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.